Okay, so over to Asha to give us a talk on fire safety in the home. I believe. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much.
Can everybody hear me? It's a bit echoey again. I've got to apologise for my limping. I was at a Northern Soul event at the weekend. I was a bit too eager and I've tore a muscle in my calf. So I'm hobbling a bit, but I'm absolutely fine. Okay, so my name's Asha and I work within the community safety side of things. So I no longer put the fires out. I do all of the education and prevention side of things. So I'll come out and give talks. I'll go into schools and colleges and I do all of the higher risk home fire safety visits. And I'm here this morning, not to bore you to death, but just to give you a little bit of information that you can take away to think about your own property and are you as safe as you could be, and also to talk briefly about home fire safety visits. Okay, so has anybody had a home fire safety visit from us before? Yeah, a few, okay. So they're free of charge, obviously, because we don't charge for anything as the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service. They're really handy. We'll come to your property, we'll go through a list of questions, we will look at certain things in your property. We don't check every single room, but we'll go into the living room, we'll go into the kitchen, might look at a few appliances, and just make sure that you have got a plan of action if there is a fire in your property, okay? So if you would like one, our eligibility has changed. So if you're 65 and over, you qualify for a visit. Other things get taken into, so if there's an airflow mattress, if you smoke, if there's dementia, and someone has dementia, things like that. But straight away, if you're 65, even without any health issues, you are eligible for a home fire safety visit, okay? So the best thing to do is either, if you are tech savvy and you can use your computer, your laptop, etc., just go onto the Scottish Fire and Rescue website and you can actually refer yourself for a visit. Or there is an 0800 number, so if you're not great with technology or you don't want to refer yourself, if you call the 0800 number, one of our call handlers will take that information and then they will put you on for a home fire safety visit, okay? More than likely it'll be myself. I cover the whole of Perth and Kinross, so it will be myself and my colleague Keith that will come out and do your visit for you, okay? Also, if there's any questions throughout my talk, it's very relaxed. I don't mind being interrupted if you've got a question there and then, rather than kind of holding it to the end of the talk. Okay, so one of our target audiences, it was a campaign called Make the Call, and it's for individuals over 50 who smoke. Okay, so this could be yourself, it could be a neighbour, it could be a family relative. So do you know anybody over 50 who smokes, and do they either live alone, they have mobility issues, or they use medical oxygen? Okay, if you know anybody or you fit that criteria yourself, we would like to know about them. So the Make the Call campaign came around kind of during COVID time, where a lot of our turnouts, that was the kind of key audience. We were regularly coming out and visiting people that fit that criteria, okay? So if you fit the criteria, if you know anybody, please let us know. So again, it's over 50, they live alone, they've got mobility issues, or they use medical oxygen. We would just like to give them a home fire safety visit, and then they're on our record as well. So if we are turned out to the property, we know, right, it's Betty, she's got oxygen, or she's got an airflow mattress, and then we've got that information ahead of time, okay? So smoking accounts for 36% of fire fatalities. So smoking is the biggest cause of death in Scotland, and it's cooking that's the biggest cause of fire. Okay, so cooking's the biggest cause of fire, but it's smoking that is the biggest cause of death, and smoking in bed, smoking on the couch. So again, what we look for when we go into properties, and this, I'm not going to ask you all kind of individually, but do you know anybody? Do you fit into this criteria? So is there a history of fire? So do you know somebody where the fire service is regularly turned out because maybe someone's left cooking on, they've left their toaster on, they've forgotten and they've went away to do something else? Anybody smoking in bed as well, that is super high risk. We are told on a regular basis, I won't fall asleep, it won't be me, I've been doing it for years. And unfortunately, people do fall asleep, and we have had quite a few fatalities within PCAD, so Perth, Kinross and Dundee, over the last couple of years with people falling asleep with a cigarette. And that could be in bed. Some people sleep on the couch or on a chair, and that we would still class that as smoking in bed. Okay. Any burn marks on furnishing. So if people aren't putting their cigarettes out correctly, they might be dropping them on themselves. So you might see burn marks on their clothes. You might see burn marks on the floor where they're just dropping them, or the ash is getting dropped onto the floor, onto their kind of chair or the couch or wherever they're sitting as well. Ashtrays overflowing. So I go into properties where cigarettes aren't put out correctly. They're just maybe overflowing in a bin or on an ashtray, or even just chucked on the floor. So again, it's just making sure that the cigarettes are put out correctly if you do smoke. Any emollient creams as well. So as we get older, we might use emollient creams. I don't know if you're all aware, but they are flammable. So it's just being aware that if you do smoke or know somebody that does, and they've got emollient creams, they become flammable. As soon as you put that on your skin and it's all over your clothes, you become flammable. Okay, so it's making sure that you stay away from cigarettes, from kind of gas, any sort of flames, candles, etc. Airflow mattresses. Have we come across them before? Do you know what an airflow mattress is? No. So these are in themselves, they're a very useful piece of equipment, and we find when people are in the latter stages of life, or if they are bed-bound for whatever reason, the bed is to reduce bed sores. So in itself, it's an absolutely fine piece of equipment, but because air is pumped into it constantly, if there was a fire in that property, it would be a really intense fire because the air would keep feeding the fire, okay? And if you can imagine, if there was an individual on that bed who is immobile or not able to move very quickly, you can imagine the devastation, okay? And especially if they have lotions and potions and things that are flammable, it would be a really intense, really quick fire, okay? So what we'd ask with the airflow mattress is just making sure, again, if you've got one or you know somebody with one, that room it's in, making sure that there's nothing that could cause the bed to go on fire. So no candles, no electric fires, no overloaded adapters, anything like that. So the room has to be pretty clear of anything like that, okay? Any sort of medication, if you take medication and it does make you drowsy, again, be careful if you are smoking, making sure that you're having your cigarette and then taking medication, not to cook under the influence or any medication that does make you kind of drowsy and tired, and having a wee nighttime routine, which I'll touch on shortly. Any questions about any of that? No? Yeah? Not all the time, unfortunately. So especially care providers, so we'll go out and visit a property and the carer doesn't know anything about them. So they should ideally, when the NHS or the Joint Equipment Loan Service gives them out, they should be told, but they're not always. So we find that we've then got to communicate with the carers as well to make sure that they're aware of the risks of them. As I said, in themselves, they're a fabulous piece of equipment, but it's just if there was a fire, that it makes it a very intense fire. Yeah?
I don't know if people still use it, but electric blankets.
I will come on to that. I will come on to it. It's on my list. Okay, so electrical safety. I'm not going to, again, go into too much detail with the science, but essentially it's using the hot and cold rule. Okay, so if something heats up and cools down, it needs to go straight in the wall. So can anyone just shout out an example of anything that heats up or cools down? Kettle, yeah. So kettle needs to go straight in the wall. Iron, yeah. Toaster, yeah. So anything like that needs to go straight into the wall, not into an adapter. And we find a lot of properties nowadays, if they're older properties, that might be that there's not enough plug sockets, they might not be working. We have so many more kind of technical electrical devices that we like to use. And we find that people use adapters and what we call daisy chaining. So they'll put one adapter in and then that'll be plugged into another one, and that just increases the risk of a fire and them overheating, okay? So see the bottom right picture, we find that all the time. And what we call cube adapters or square adapters, they're still legal, but we don't like them because they come away from the wall, especially when there's a plug on the top and the front. They come away from the wall, electricity will arc, and then the dust will get in between, and that increases the risk of a fire, okay? So ideally, we don't like those cubes, but if we go to anyone's house, again, it's just guidance, we don't take them away, we'll just inform you that they're not ideal. We have strip adapters at the fire station that we can give you free of charge to replace them if need be. So the blue one as well, does anyone does anyone use those? The blue cable that you can see? Yeah. So I would only use those kind of short term, so if I was cutting the grass or something like that. But again, we go into properties and we find people using them all the time. The risk is that the electricity keeps going round and there's nowhere for it to go, and it will overheat and can go on fire. So unless you're just using it short term to cut the grass or do something quickly, if you have one of those plugged in all the time, it's better to actually take the cable fully out, which obviously then makes it a trip hazard, but then to tuck the cable away. Okay, so you're better taking the cable out, tucking the cable away so it's not a trip hazard, rather than leaving it kind of uncoiled. Okay. Being aware of kind of electric heater storage heaters. We had a fatality last year. Somebody had their little heater on like that, but their laundry was too close to it. Went on fire, and unfortunately the gentleman didn't get out quick enough. Okay, so it's just being aware the appliances that you've got, they're up to date. You know, you've had it tested recently, that you know it works safely. Airflow mattress, as I said. Electric blanket, right. So I regularly go out and do visits and do talks, and individuals have electric blankets they bought in 1955. If you have an electric blanket that old, even if it looks fine, it will not be, okay? Does anyone know the lifespan of an electric blanket? Fantastic, yeah. So if your electric blanket is older than 3 years old, you need to get a new one. Even if it looks fine, it won't be, okay? It's an electrical appliance. Things can still go wrong with it. Even if it's the most expensive top brand, it doesn't matter, okay? I get funding every year to get electric blankets. So if you get to the time of the year and you don't have one, we usually have single and double electric blankets we can give you for free, okay? Just bear in mind, if you have an electric blanket, we find that they're like Marmite. Some people really like them, some people don't. But just make sure you follow the instructions on the blanket. And once you're in bed and it's nice and toasty, switch it off. Do not have it on when you're asleep. When we're all asleep, we are more vulnerable and we are slower to react to anything happening, okay? Obviously, if your electric blanket has little burn marks and things, before 3 years, chuck it in the bin. Every time you fold it, you take it off the bed, you put it on the bed, you put it back in your wardrobe, you're damaging the little filaments and things that you can't see in the blanket. So as I said, even though it looks fine, it won't be if it's older than 3 years, okay? Nothing should be left charging overnight, all right? So again, we all like to have our iPads, our computers, our mobile phones handy. Do not charge them overnight when you're asleep. In fact, it was last week we had an elderly gentleman, his phone went on fire and we were turned out. So it's not an overly common thing, it doesn't happen every week, but phones do go on fire, and if they do it when you're asleep, again, you're going to be slower to react and a little bit more vulnerable, especially people like to charge their phones right by their beds, underneath their pillows. Definite no-no, okay? Make sure things are charged when you're awake and you're alert and able to react, okay? The same, for example, washing machines, tumble dryers, dishwashers. Doesn't matter what brand they are, they could be most expensive brand, but things can still go wrong with them. If you are awake and alert, if there's a fire or a flood, you're quicker to react and do something about it. Whereas if you go to bed or go out, obviously there's going to be more devastation in the property, okay? I know it sounds like common sense, but we still have a large number of turnouts where people have put on electrical appliances and then went to bed or went out, okay? Okay, so just making sure that your boiler is serviced, ideally on a yearly basis. Kitchen worktops and hobs free from clutter. So one of the first things I do when I look in someone's kitchen is just to make sure that their hob has got nothing on it. We don't want to see oil or kitchen roll or cables or anything trailing over the hob, any pots and pans. We've had turnouts where the cooker was still switched on at the mains, the dogs jumped up, turned the cooker on by accident, the lady's come back in at the kitchen, and the kitchen's been devastated because she had kind of pots and pans and things on the cooker, okay? So as much as possible, just leaving it as clear as you can. Our appliances in good working order as well. So if you're using electrical appliances, just make sure that there's not wires hanging out them. You know, they are fairly new, they have been checked. We're not electricians, so we won't check each individual item, but by just looking at something, we can tell you, yeah, you're better to get a new one. Thinking about where the is located as well. These are little kind of, electrical appliances you don't think much of. However, they can cause a lot of devastation. If your toaster is underneath the kitchen cabinet, please make sure that you pull it out before you make your toast, because we've had incidents where the toast will, if it doesn't pop, it will continue to burn, or if there's a lot of crumbs in the toaster, and what it will do is it will attach itself to the kitchen cabinet because it's dry, and it will move around your kitchen super quickly. Okay, so just making sure that your toaster is pulled out from underneath the cabinet if that's where it lives, and that you empty the crumbs and things out of it on a regular basis. As I said, it's really kind of looking, but it can cause a lot of devastation. Chip pans, so there's a lot of air fryers nowadays. We don't come across as many chip pans. However, there are still some, because we're told that they make the best chips. But it's just, if you have got a chip pan, just bearing in mind the amount of oil that you put in it, don't kind of fill it to the brim. Always stay with it. So whenever you cook anything, I would advise that you stay in the kitchen, even if it is just a slice of toast, but especially if it's a chip pan, you stay with it. And what do you not put on it if it goes on fire? Water. Yeah. So back in the day, we would have said, get a damp cloth, put that over the pan. But nowadays, we would just say, switch your cooker off if you can, close the door and get out, because we've had too many incidents where the individuals have thought, oh, it's fine now. They've lifted the towel off, oxygen's hit it, and then they've been severely burned or injured. So it's just, don't try and put it out yourself, just get out. Some people have fire extinguishers at home and kind of blankets and things. Again, I would say if it's your own regular kind of residential property, we don't suggest putting the fire out yourself. Most people have never used it. They don't know if it's still working, if it's in date. Even a few inhales of smoke would leave you unconscious, so it's not worth it unless you're specifically trained and you want to do it. But we would always say just switch the appliance off or just get out the property as quick as possible. Oxygen, as I said, a lot of older people have oxygen nowadays, and it's just, again, it's absolutely fine, but just making sure that the property is vented, because the oxygen will build up in the atmosphere and it will go onto the occupier's clothes. So again, just making sure that they don't smoke, they're not near any flames, whether that be the kitchen or candles or anything like that. Our stairs, hallways and escape routes kept clear. So if there is a fire, and especially at night, you want to be able to get out of your property as quick as possible and not have to clamber over items. Okay, if you trip over and knock yourself out, you're putting yourself at risk. Okay, so we want to be able to get in and out the property as easy as possible, and we want you to be able to get out your property as well as quick as possible. Okay, fuel poverty, we're moving into warmer weather, so it's not as much of an issue currently, but we found obviously with gas and electric going up, people are doing things that we might think is silly, but actually that it's because they can't afford to heat their property. So they're Googling things, they're going on to websites and they're using pottery with candles and all sorts of things. Barbecues, we had people overcome with carbon monoxide poisoning a couple of years ago because we're lighting barbecues in their living room to try to keep warm. And I know it sounds silly and you think, oh, well, do people not have common sense? But when people don't have money, they will revert to doing things to heat their property. Opening oven doors as well, we've had that, so that they'll put the oven on, they'll leave the door open to heat their kitchen. And it's just making sure things like, if chimneys, they've been swept, don't use a fireplace that's not been used for years. Again, the chimneys, if they've not been swept, can go on fire. And obviously we have a lot of electric and gas meters bypassed as well. Okay, is everyone aware of carbon monoxide? You've all heard about it before, the impact. I don't want to kind of teach you to suck eggs, but if you've got a gas boiler, you need a carbon monoxide alarm. So whether that's in the cupboard or in the kitchen, but you also need extra ones if you've got open fire. So it's not just one for the whole property. So if you've got an open fire in every single room, you need a carbon monoxide alarm in every single room, okay? We have these at the fire station, they're free of charge. So if you need a new one, or you've not got one, we can give you one for free. Carbon monoxide is a silent killer, so you can't smell it, you can't see it, but it would give you a headache, it would make you feel nauseous, it might make you feel tired, and eventually it can lead to death if it's not picked up on, which is why it's really important that you get your boiler checked on a regular basis. But even if you don't have gas and you've got oil, you would still need a carbon monoxide detector. Okay. Just a wee bit on hoarding. We've got a whole other presentation on hoarding, which obviously I'm not going to do today. But it is classed as a mental health condition, and it's something that I see on a weekly basis going into properties. So it affects approximately 3 to 7% of the population. Very few of those with hoarding issues come to the attention of statutory agencies. So we've had individuals who have just been under the radar for many years, and it's maybe been the postie or someone going out to read the meter that's picked up on this elderly individual living, that's just neglected the property, kind of neglected themselves, has mental health issues, so nobody has known about them. It's believed that there could be potentially 385,000 people across Scotland currently affected by hoarding behaviours. And I've met people who, there was an older woman, and she started hoarding. Her husband passed away suddenly in the garden of a heart attack, and that kind of triggered her hoarding behaviours. I've had a younger woman who went through a really kind of acrimonious divorce. That kick-started her hoarding. So we're non-judgmental. It's not a case of, oh, these people are lazy, they don't care. There is a lot of layers of mental health and other things going on. Over a third of people who die in house fires have hoarding tendencies. Okay, does anyone want to give me why do you think it's important, or what would be the risks of somebody who did hoard? What would be the risk to them, do you think? Fuel for fire, good, yeah. So if they've got loads of cardboard or there's loads of paper, things that fire can attach itself to and move pretty quickly, what other risks might there be?
Airflow.
Say that again, sorry?
Airflow.
Airflow.
Yeah,
Yeah, so I get, true. Trip hazards, yeah, so again, if you're trying to get out the property quickly. Escape route, again, yeah, so if you're going back to, the fire happens and you're trying to get out as quick as possible, if you're trying to clamber over things, that's going to slow you down. Obviously, and we have people with mobility issues as well, so how can they get their mobility aid past that? Yeah, something else?
Smoke and putting everything in the loft.
Putting everything in the loft, did you say, sorry?
Yeah, putting things in the loft.
Yeah, do you mean to make your...
No, storing things in the loft.
That, if there was a fire, do you mean? Yeah. So yeah, that's a, yeah.
Could be cables up underneath there as well.
Yes. So if you've got loads of things that the fire could attach itself to, yes. Yeah, so it could be clothes, could be bedding, could be newspapers, envelopes. I had a lady who collected thousands of envelopes, and she knew exactly what had arrived in every single envelope. And to us, it would just be recycle it, but there is emotions and there's memories attached to these things. So when we go into the property, it's very easy for us to say, oh, just chuck it, recycle it. But actually, individuals have attachment to these items. So if somebody hoards, it makes it very difficult for them to get out of the property, puts them at risk. But also, if I had my fire kit on and I've got my BA kit on and I've got hoses and stuff, we can't get into the property. Or I've went into a property where you open the front door and stuff just falls on you. So it's putting our lives at risk as well. Okay, a little bit of nighttime routine. So just making sure that you switch off all electrical appliances not designed to be left on. So obviously your fridge, your freezer, that kind of thing's left on. But everything else, switch it off if you can before you go to bed. And it's just having that little nighttime routine, making sure that you do it before you go to bed. Don't leave items like phones and tablets charging overnight. Turning off portable heaters and ensure a fire guard is in place. Keeping mobility aids and house keys accessible. So if there was a fire, you want to know where your house keys are. You don't want to be looking in a drawer where there's 300 sets of other keys and you don't know what they do and you're rummaging in the drawer. So you need to hang them up or put them somewhere that you can get them straight away. Also closing your doors at night as well. So I know a lot of people don't do this if they've got pets and you want them to move around, but one of the best things you can do is close your kitchen and your living room door at night. They're the two rooms that are more at risk of a fire because of the appliances. And it means if you close the door, your detectors will go off, they'll alert you to something's not right, and it would give you time to think, okay, what am I going to do? How am I going to get out of here? Whereas if you leave the doors open, the smoke and the fire will move quicker, and it will give you less time to do anything about it. Okay. Always having either a mobile phone or a landline handy as well, so you can phone the fire service or an ambulance. Making sure all cigarettes are fully extinguished. We would always suggest maybe putting a little bit of water in them just to make sure they're completely put out, and making sure all internal doors are closed. So this is a picture of an older lady's property. The rest of the property was just devastated, all the land and the stairs. And as you can see, she had her bedroom door closed, but the smoke obviously has attempted to come through. She survived, but if her bedroom door had been open, she wouldn't have survived with the amount of smoke and flames that were there. So she closed her bedroom door. I know a lot of people don't like to, especially when it gets warmer, you want that kind of through breeze. So I would suggest as a minimum your kitchen and your living room doors. Okay. A wee bit about smoke detection. So I'm not going to ask you all individually what you have got. Legislation changed about 3 years ago. So your detection has to all be interlinked, and what that means, if one goes off, they all go off, and makes a racket, which obviously they need to alert you. So if you go into your property, you should have a smoke detection in your hallway, you should have a smoke detector in your living room or the room that you're in most of the time. If you've got an upstairs, you need a smoke detector on your landing upstairs, and you need what we call a heat detector in the kitchen, and they all need to be interlinked, so if one goes off, they all go off. The heat detector in the kitchen, that won't go off unless it's like an oven. So unless it was like an oven or a sauna, it would be super, super hot before that goes off. If you find that you're cooking and it goes off, it's because the smoke detector in the hallway has picked up, and then it obviously will then talk to the heat detector. So if you find that they go off all the time, just make sure you open your kitchen window and maybe close your kitchen door so it's not activating your smoke in your hallway. This is legislation, it is law. However, no one is going to knock on your door and check that you've done it. You're not going to be arrested if you haven't done it. It's more for your own safety and for your house insurance as well. House insurance have come back to us. Obviously, there's so many different providers. Some have said it's fine because they're based in England and as long as you've got detection. Some have said if you don't meet Scottish legislation, they would not pay out, or they would not pay out the full amount. So it really depends who your insurance provider is as well. But we as a fire service, we will come out. We're not going to tell you off if you don't have your link detection. If you meet certain criteria, if you don't have detection, we can come and fit the link detection for you. But we're not there to tell you off, we're there to support you. So if you know of anybody that doesn't have any detection, please let us know and we'll do our best to make their property safer, all right? So yeah, we can provide carbon monoxide detectors as well. They don't need to be linked into your smoke and heat, they can just be standalone, and we've got them, we can give you free of charge as well. Also hearing your detectors. So if you have hearing aids, and if you take them out and you cannot hear your smoke and heat detectors, we work with a company called Vision PK, so some of you might have come across them. They can provide vibrating pads that go underneath your pillow, and it's a flashing light, and that would alert you. So obviously if you can't hear the detector, a wee vibrating pad underneath your pillow, and it's a flashing light. Okay, so there's lots and lots of devices, whether it's your sight, whether it's your hearing, that would keep you that little bit safer. Okay, so a few of the resources that we have. So we've got a lot of resources, kind of fire retardant. So if you know individuals who smoke, we can provide fire retardant bedding. While that doesn't take the risk away completely, it does lower the risk of someone falling asleep and causing a fire in their bed. We've got boxes of bedding as well, single and double, comes with the duvet and the pillows as well as the sheet and things. We've got a fire retardant mat, so if anyone's dropping cigarettes on the floor, we've got those. We've got carbon monoxide, as I said. We can fit the link detection if you meet the criteria. And the middle one is what we call like a mail guard or a sash jammer. So if you're getting just kids being annoying, putting stuff through your letterbox, or we've had threats of fire, for example, with women's aid referrals, we can put something on your mailbox, and it just means that nobody can, once the mailman's been, you shut the mailbox down and nobody can put anything else through them, okay? The mustard picture at the top there is a throw. It's not a very nice colour, unfortunately, but they just go over people's chairs and couches again if they're smoking and they're dropping their cigarettes. We also work with SGN on like locking cooker valves. So if you've got any family members with dementia or autism and you don't want them to be able to use the cooker, SGN can come out and they can switch the cooker off, and it just means that it's not being left on. Microwaves, just something as well, just making sure that if a lot of people use microwaves and then they say, oh, I'm not really cooking, I'm just using a microwave, but just making sure that when you're only putting items in that can actually be microwaved and for the right amount of time. We had an older lady a couple of weeks ago who just put in a little pudding and she left it in too long and the microwave exploded, it went on fire because she'd left it in too long. So while the microwave, again, is a useful piece of equipment, it is still electrical and you still have to abide by, putting the correct items in for the correct amount of time, okay? Questions? We whistle-stop tour. Yep.
What's your recommendation on...
I need a job.
What's your recommendation on electric car charging and electric bike charging?
There's lots of issues because the government's pushing us to have electric vehicles, and I get that from a certain point of view, but if you've never seen an electric car go on fire, it is very difficult to put it out. So that is the kind of the things that the fire service are having to adapt to and change to. Charging is fairly safe. I can never say it's 100% safe, but there's things in place to keep it. I live in a flat, and I have one of the tenants in my block charging it. I wasn't overly keen, but they have put things in place to make it as safe as possible, and that's the way, unfortunately, that we are moving forward with electric vehicles. And we have mobility scooters and things like that with the batteries. So just making sure if you have a mobility scooter, you only ever charge it again during the day, it's not at night, and you don't leave it in a place where you would have to evacuate the building. A lot of people charge it at their front door, but obviously if it went on fire, how are you going to get out of the property? Okay.
Over here, Asha.
Thank you very much. That's all very interesting. I'm sure a few of us are going to be dashing off home to make changes. A couple of questions. In terms of fire safety, would you recommend cooking with gas, electric or hydrogen? And in terms of house heating, would you recommend gas, electricity or hydrogen?
I couldn't really comment on the kind of the heating side of things. I'm not a specialist that way, but they all have their own kind of pros and cons, to be honest. But it's just making sure if you've got gas central heating, that you get your boiler update, you get it regularly checked, you've got your carbon monoxide, kind of electric heating as well, that you've got the wiring and things done. We go into properties where the wiring's not been checked for many years, so it's just making sure that you're getting those things checked on a regular basis, because either of them can be an issue, if you're not keeping up to date with the services and the checks. Okay.
Can I ask you about safety, leaving things on a skybox? I was always told to leave your skybox on because sometimes it's updating overnight. Yeah, so things like your TV would be all right. They're kind of lower risk. If I was to go on holiday, I switch everything off. But if I'm just out during the day, I would keep my TV on standby, because if if you're saying there's updates, if you've saved programs and things, it's a pain in the bum, isn't it, every time you switch it off? So things like that are kind of lower risk. But if I go on holiday, everything gets switched off. So in the event of an emergency, it's out the property, 999. But if you can't get out the property, does anyone know what you would do? So if you can't, plan A is always to get out the property, but if you can't for any reason, what would you do? So you'd go to a room as far away from the fire as you can. You'd close as many doors between you and the fire. In that room, any sort of bedding, blankets at the bottom of the door. The room that you're in, open your window nice and wide. We don't suggest jumping out a window, sitting on roofs or anything like that. Obviously, if you're low down and you can just literally step out. Otherwise, you wait by the window and you shout fire, not help, because help's a little bit ambiguous. Whereas if shout fire, window nice and wide, the crew will be with you within a few minutes. Oh.
Thank you. a rarity, but I'll mention it because it's a bit closer. The nearest we've had to a fire in our house. In the conservatory, we had a spherical flower vase.
Right.
And one summer, when we got some sunshine,
Yes.
we weren't in the house. The vase acted as a lens, and we had scorch marks on the shelf.
Yeah.
If there'd been newspapers nearby or a journal, could well have been a fire.
Yes. Yeah. So it is things like that that you think, oh, it would never happen, but it does. We've had someone's magnifying glass left on the kitchen table. The sun's came in and it's burnt a big mark on the table because you said it reflects the sun. It acts as a lens, so that can happen as well. Yeah. Just making sure that things like that are maybe out of the sun's way, which maybe isn't something we need to worry about in Scotland too often. But yeah, good point. Yeah.
Yes. I have an electric heater, as most people do. You've said it must be plugged into the wall.
Yes.
I have no plugs anywhere near where I sit.
Yeah.
Is there a safe adapter that I can use when I'm awake and sitting? I could fall asleep in the chair. Of course I could.
Yeah.
What do I do about that?
I mean, ideally, as I said, it would be needing to go straight in the wall. However, if you are with it all the time, you're not leaving it on and then going to bed. If you have to put it into an adapter, as long as you are there with it, if anything happened, you're able to react to it. That's very different to just leaving it on and then going away, going out the room or going to bed. But ideally, it should be in the wall. But your next best option would be, if you need to use an adapter, but just staying awake and alert with it. Just like a strip adapter, so you can get them. They're not expensive. You can get them in lots of different shops. We have them as well, free of charge. And it's also being aware that just because you've got that many plugs in it doesn't mean you can use them all at one time. So we've got like I've seen towers as well, and people have got maybe their chair, a lamp, a phone, something else, and just because they're all there doesn't mean you can use them all at the one time. So it's being aware of that as well.
At the risk of giving you another anecdote,
Yeah.
I think this one might be useful. I used to be a manager of an IT department. I was in the office one day. The guys had gone out for lunch. There was a laptop behind me on another desk. It was open, and I think it was on, but it wasn't plugged in. I heard a pop, looked around, there was a flame coming from the keyboard.
Yeah.
That escalated to the entire building being evacuated and the fire brigade being called. So don't leave your laptop switched on if you're not there, is my suggestion.
Yeah.
Again, it's unusual. It was a faulty battery, I believe.
Well, that's the thing. It doesn't matter what brand, but because they are electrical devices, things can go wrong.
Yeah.
They can do unexpected things. And as we said, if it's during the day and you can react to it, whereas if it's at night time, we're all that bit more vulnerable and a bit slower to react.
One last one.
If you fit all these plugs that you're talking about, how much do you charge?
We don't charge anything. We're the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service, so we are here to help our community. We don't charge anything.
Oh.
Don't charge anything.
I'll be calling on you.
I'm not here to sell anywares. And literally, we do everything free of charge. We're part of the community, and we're here to keep people safe from fire as much as possible.
I think that's it for the questions, and I'd like to say thank you very much for Asha, who's been extremely brave today, coming along with her northern soul injury and having to lean on a chair. Even braver, she came along even though she knew she was going to have to sit through our AGM. True bravery. Thank you very much, Asha.
Thank you.
Just one more thing before we finish. Sorry, question. I don't answer questions on the fire service, but... Thank you. Thank you very much. A little known fact is we keep on working through the summer. Which leads me to the thing I was going to mention. The next big event we have is Registration Day, which is, and I've got to try very hard to get the date right this time, Monday, 25th of August, not Monday the 26th of August, which doesn't exist. Monday, 25th of August, and it will be in here, where there's about 25-30% more space than there was in the hall, which we used up there. So you'll come in August, if you come to the registration day meeting, to a completely transformed sanctuary space here with tables laid out for the group leaders to join groups. One thing I would like to push a little bit is we always get a lot of people joining or rejoining their membership at registration day. It usually causes a big queue. I'd really like to try and move registration day to be more towards people choosing groups and signing up with different groups, of which, as Ray said, there's 74 now. So if you can possibly renew your membership beforehand, either by post or online, that would help us to get through the real business of the registration day much more quickly, joining up with groups and so on. If you do join here, that's fine. We have the card reader now, as Irene says, so that should be a bit quicker as well. The only slight difference is that for joining up or renewing your membership, will be at a table out there in the open space in that corner, I think. So all of this will be devoted to the group tables. So there we are again. I'll try it again. Monday, 25th of August. That's when we'll see you again. And thanks very much for your support during the year. We're now up to 523 members. We're going really strong. And I hope that in the next 3 months or so, we can put in an interim chair and fill our committee for the first time in many years. So thank you all as well. See you in August.